To be here with you today. Thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction. Thank you for taking the time out. I know time is precious. We all have tons of things to do. So I'm not going to keep you here very long. So I'll try to wrap it up as much as I can so that we can answer some questions at the end. I think that's really important as well. So I'm going to share my screen right now into my presentation. Okay, so can everyone see me here as well? Is this okay in terms of presentation? Jennifer, can you say yes?
Yeah, all looks good.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to start off by, so this is just kind of a little roadmap, little agenda for my presentation today. I want to kind of go through who's Linda, so who am I and why would you be listening to me and what do I have to say? I think that I just kind of a little introduction and into my little journey as well to kind of explain to you where I've been and what I've been doing. I also want to touch upon, because the title of the webinar is How to Manage RMS Symptoms with Real Food to Take Charge of Our Health, I think I really want to touch very briefly on what is real food. I think that sometimes the definition of that is a little unclear for a lot of people, so I just briefly want to say, to give you an idea what I believe what real food is. And then I want to jump into what is really important in terms of providing and sharing my six tips to help you better manage your nutrition. And then I'll talk a little bit about how I can maybe help you to continue. Now, before starting, it's important to share a medical disclaimer. I think it's important to realize that the information and the guidance that I'm providing today is not intended to replace any types of recommendations that you've received from either your general practitioner or from a neurologist. I'm not telling you to stop anything, to do anything. It's just things to complement. So whatever you decide to do, you'd be advised to actually maybe discuss this presentation with your specialist to make sure that it's a good course of action for you, okay? Now, who is Linda? That's me. That's the picture of my first marathon. I was diagnosed with MS 18 years ago. So like yourself, as you know, I went through a series of a roller coaster of different MS symptoms, I would say for the first 10 years of being diagnosed. Very scary, always feeling afraid, always being either going through, I had was a paralysis of my right side. I had optic neuritis of my left eye. I've had clubfoot. I've had a lot of symptoms, a lot of fatigue, episodes. So a variety of different symptoms. And I'm sure that you can relate to that as well. And it's scary, right? You don't know what to do. But I must say that I'm happy to share that the one thing that's kept me going is my exercise. I've never stopped. Even when I was first diagnosed, I was training for my first marathon. And the picture that you see there on the screen is after completing my first marathon and with my 1-year-old daughter. So that marathon was actually life-changing for me because it was kind of an indication showing me that I'm able to do this, that I'm able to get through this. So exercise for me, every time I step out the door and I hit the road's my therapy. The road is where I cry. The road is where I think. And the road is where I'm always so grateful for my body. But I'm not saying that you have to go out and run a marathon. Exercise, any forms of exercise, moving our bodies is so, so important. And so it's a really important key to our managing our MS. But what I realized initially, there was still a component missing because I was still going through various symptoms. So that's when, as a teacher, I stepped out of the classroom and I decided to return to school to actually study natural nutrition for myself, to learn more for myself, to help me. Is there something? And that's where it was the big aha moment in my life where it was like, oh my God, there's a link between food and MS. food is actually, there are foods out there that are so powerful that can help us actually decrease our inflammation. There are foods out there that are really bad. So at that point, then that's when I started making changes to my diet and really feeling a lot better. And I'm happy to share that I've been actually feeling a lot better for the past 8 years since making all these changes. And that's why I've decided to, at that point, to hang up my hat as a teacher, in a high school teacher, or at the primary level. I was teaching grade 3 as well, and to start my own business as a holistic nutritionist. And now my goal is to help individuals like yourself. I specialize with clients with MS to help people with MS learn that how to actually maybe make little changes to their diet to make them feel better. Like, we all know that there's no cure for MS. And I'm not saying that food is a cure, but food is good for everyone, right? It's good it makes us feel better, and it can make us healthier. So if we're healthier, we can better manage the ups and downs of our disease, right? So that's a little, kind of in a nutshell, my little story of living with MS. And hopefully I can share some of the tricks and on nutrition that I've learned along the way that can maybe be helpful for you as well. So if you look at this picture, who can actually relate to stepping into a grocery store and going, oh my God, now what do I do? What do I buy? We're so bombarded every day in terms of the different health claims that exist. So we don't know what foods to eat, what foods not to eat, whether low fat, no fat, high sugar, no sugar. There's so much information that we just get lost in the grocery store. We just don't know where to go, right? And that happens a lot. I have a lot of clients that come see me and say, Linda, I need help. Where do I go? Where do I start, right? And most in the grocery store, if you go in the aisles, this is what you'll find. A lot of packaged foods, a lot of pre-prepared foods, a lot of inflammatory foods. And these are examples of not real food, right? But they're the foods that most of us, a lot of us, have been eating a lot and not realizing that it's not necessarily, they're very void, they're nutrient void, I should say. They're not too many nutritious vitamins or minerals in there. But on the other hand, this is an image, or these images are pictures of real food. So this is what I consider real food, right? So a real food for me is something that has a mother, something that is either grown in a tree or grown in the ground, or something that was alive at one point, and is something that will, if you leave it on the counter, will maybe rot away because it's real food, right? And something that doesn't have 13 ingredients at the end of their name. I think that that's really key. So that's the real food that we want to consume as much as we can to nourish our nervous system and to nourish our brain, to be able to kickstart the healing process in our body and to help our body, because our health is compromised with MS. So we need the nutrients as much as possible. So some food rules that I just want to briefly share with you. I just think they're so cute. So in terms of food rules, you don't want to eat anything that your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. That's one rule. Another rule, it's not food if it arrived through the window of your car. And how about this one? If it came from a plant, eat it. If it was made in a plant, don't eat it. Now, these are all food rules that I actually got from this book, which I love, Michael Pollan. And it's just wonderful. It's all in relations to real food and what we should be eating and the importance of eating real food. And that's what I'm encouraging you today to consider in eating more real food. And so that was basically my discovery in terms of the foods you eat can be either the most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. But you need to listen to your body as well, and we'll get to that. Because if you think of all the different diets here that exist, right, there are a lot of diets. Like, I'm not one to say that one diet is better than another. What's important is that, and there's no Linda diet either. You're not here for me to share my Linda diet. That's not the plan. I think what's important is that, yes, all these diets exist. They're all guidelines. They all highlight a different different ways, different foods that you should be consuming. And I think that that's really good to highlight but what's really important in all this is that there's a billion, I would say, let's say 7 billion people on this earth. There also exists 7 billion different types of diets, right? In other words, you have to listen to yourself. All these diets are guidelines, right? So you have to listen to yourself to see what works for you and how you react to certain things or certain guidelines. Okay, so I think that that's really key in terms of picking something, right? And you'll see I have a lot of clients that say, I follow the paleo diet, or I follow Dr. Wall's diet, or I follow whatever, and that's fine. But then it's okay to modify. So my diet, I've modified a little bit of this, but I've been listening to my body the most as well, and I think that's important. Now, 6 tips to help manage your MS symptoms with real food. Okay, so here we go. So the first tip is I want you to consider avoiding inflammatory foods. As you know, MS is an inflammatory disease. And we know that generally, if there's signs and symptoms of MS, symptoms going on in our bodies, that's a sign of inflammation. So I always refer to inflammation as fire. So it's an internal fire, right? So there are foods that we can consume that will increase the inflammation in our body, and there's foods that we can consume that'll actually put down the inflammation in our body. Okay. So one food that's actually can increase the inflammation in our body are dairy products, such as your milks and your cheeses and your yogurt. So all the dairy products themselves are extremely problematic for MS because they're very inflammatory, because in particular, it's been shown that dairy actually activates the immune system cells that actually can promote or provoke an attack itself, or so make your MS symptoms worse. So that's something that you need to really be careful of. Now, the second food that kind of does the same thing is gluten and wheat. Like, I know gluten and wheat. Okay, so I have an example here. Bread. We all eat breads, right? My husband loves that type of bread. So gluten and wheat themselves actually sparks the flame of MS. And what I mean by that is that it sparks the inflammation. It sparks the activation of your immune system in a way that generally our immune system is there to protect ourselves, is there to protect our bodies, like our little internal army. But in our case with MS, our little army sometimes is we have renegade cells. It's the army, the little soldiers are not really listening to the rules, okay? So gluten sometimes will activate the bad guys and could possibly damage, or I would say actually activate the immune system cells to actually could provoke an MS attack. So that's something to be careful of. So, but we know that gluten and wheat, like if you're celiac, yes, you're very sensitive to it. In terms of MS, it's not the same thing in the sense, the same degree to it. You're not going to pass, you're not going to have a big response to eating gluten. But today, we don't realize that today a lot of people, because it's such a common food that we eat on a daily basis. Like, I have clients that come and see me, and when we review the journal, because that's the first thing I ask the clients to complete is the food journal, because I have, just to kind of give us an idea of what the clients eat on a weekly basis. And on a daily basis, we can sometimes, the client will realize that, oh my God, I'm eating a lot of gluten. So we're exposing our body to gluten on a continuous basis. Well, it's this exposure on a continuous basis that can, in the long run, be even more detrimental and can cause more inflammatory responses, right? So if you think of the morning, 2 toasts, let's say, or a bowl of cereal, then maybe lunch we'll have a sandwich. So again, more bread, right? And then maybe at snack at 3 o'clock, we'll have crackers and cheese, let's say. And then at dinner, pasta. So there's more gluten, and maybe a piece of bread with that, and maybe a little cookie or a dessert. So more gluten. So there's an exposure to a lot of gluten. And we know that gluten is a protein. And actually, gluten is a protein that is like a glue, right? So it's used in a lot of baking goods because it keeps things together. But in our body, when we consume it, in a lot of folks that have autoimmune diseases, it's been shown to actually be detrimental. But that's something that you would need to test in your own body. And this is something I know myself, consuming gluten, I know it right away. Right now, if I cheat and I have a little gluten, my numbness in my legs right away will actually increase quite a bit. So again, that you have to listen to your body, see how you respond to it, right? And another thing that gluten and wheat is actually very damaging to us is that it's very harsh on the gut. And if it actually very difficult to digest, because the wheat today is not the same wheat as our great-great-grandmother used to consume as well, because of all the way that it's grown today. It's not the same. So it can, and there's a lot of studies now that are showing that it can actually damage the gut. And if there's damage to our gut, then we may not be absorbing the key nutrients properly, and it could cause some problems. Okay, so that's just something to consider. So these top foods, top anti-inflammatory foods, and this is an example of gluten foods. So you have, your typical breads, your pasta, some snacks such as your pretzels, and I love pretzels, right? But they don't love me. Now, my second tip, to eat a plate of greens every day. I think that's important, and I think it's important to mix your greens. There's a variety of greens, but why greens? I see, again, when I see my clients and I look on their food journals, often there's no color. And I'll take like a little highlighter, a green highlighter, and I'll highlight all the greens on what they would be consuming on a weekly basis. And often we don't see. But greens are so good for us because for our MS, they nourish us. They give us top nourishment, top vitamin Bs, super important to help with our nervous system. It helps its vitamin Bs. It's kind of anti-stress, right? It's a stress pill if you want to think about it. Vitamin C, which are your antioxidants, vitamin K, which is really good for our bones. So all these are good for our immune health, intestines, and our brain cells. So we need greens. And not only that, greens are very rich in minerals. And minerals are very important to not only, well, one of them is that it helps to detoxify our body. So that's really good. But greens, I equate it to energy. So you eat your greens on a daily basis. At least start with at least one plate a day, okay? And increase that to more. Preferably organic if you can, because of the pesticides. And we know we want to as much because, again, our health is compromised. We want to decrease our toxic load as much as we can. So if you can buy organic, that would be great, or grow it yourself in your garden now that summertime here in Canada is going to be starting. So I'll be planting my kale. I can't wait because I just went and bought an organic kale here. So I'll be planting this in my garden. I hope some of you actually plant this, but I mean, you don't just kale. It's not just kale that's green, but there's a whole whack of greens, such as what you see the image here, right? So you have some parsley, some broccoli, some asparagus, leafy greens, collard greens. There's a whole bunch of different varieties. So at least start with one plate a day, and that you can increase that to at least, you want to max out to at least 3 plates a day if possible, okay? So the third tip is you want to increase your omega-3 rich foods in your diet. If you think of your brain is comprised of 60% fat, okay? So our nervous system, or think of the nervous system a bit like the internet. That's the way I like to kind of describe it sometimes. So you think, okay, so the nervous system is the internet, then you have your brain, your spinal cord, and your nerves are the highway of information, right? And all this, the nerves are all insulated by myelin, right? So myelin is actually our insulation of fat. So we need to consume fat. And one of the fats that many of us are deficient in is omega-3. So this is a brain food. This is a building block to not only nourish your brain, but also to nourish the nervous system, to nourish your myelin, which is really, really super important, okay? So it contributes to the increase of immune regulation, and it sometimes helps to decrease your MS occurrences or your MS symptoms. But the bottom line, it helps to reduce inflammation, so the fire in your body. Super, super, super important. So what are omega-3 rich foods? There's a lot of them. You think of the health claims though. So you look at those eggs. You buy omega-3 eggs. I would prefer you to purchase normal eggs, I would say, not to consider. I have some clients, they'll say, oh yeah, I eat a lot of my omega-3. I get them on a daily basis. I eat 2 eggs a day. Well, that's not your recommended daily allowance. The recommended is 1.5 grams per day. And with MS, I normally encourage to increase that to 3 or 4 grams per day. so eggs actually, in a way, they actually can say that they're, it's because it's the hens that are fed. I have here little flax seeds, right? Can you see these? Okay, so little flax seeds. So the hens eat the flax seeds, but the flax seeds are high in omega-3. And then we eat the eggs that have the omega-3. Well, I would prefer you to eat the source. Eat the flax seeds, okay, rather than the egg, okay? I don't think that we should depend on fully eggs for our full omega-3 consumption. The best source would be your salmon, not farm salmon, but wild salmon. So your wild salmon, just like let's say that the size of your palm, so about 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces, equals to about, I would say maybe about between, depending on the thickness of it, about 1.1 to 1.9 grams, let's say, of omega-3, which is about your daily allowance. However, you're not going to eat a fish every day, right? We recommend maybe 2 to 3 times a week to eat some fish, but it's not everyone that likes fish. So where else do you get omega-3? So you need a variety, right? So you can either supplement, or you can also, kind of eat a variety. Like I love to eat my chia seeds every day. I eat a tablespoon of chia seeds. But you have to remember that chia seeds and flax seeds are plant-based omega-3. So your body has to actually convert plant-based omega-3 in your body. So you have to make sure. So the best source is your animal-based source, right? Like your salmon or your different types of water fresh based fish as well. You also have some greens. So there's a lot of different sources. Now, tip number 4, drinking water. I'm sure you've heard this before. Everyone, we've been told since we're so young to drink water, the importance of drinking water. But are you really drinking enough water, right? If you think about it, on a daily basis, you lose about 1.5 liters of water a day. Okay, how? Well, you lose this amount of water by me, like for instance, me talking. I'm losing a lot of water, so that's why I'm thirsty. I need to drink a lot. You lose it by sweating. You lose it by I said breath already. So breath, sweating, when you go to the washroom, when you your different functions in your body. So you lose actually water, a lot of water. So you need to consume quite a bit. So you need to consume at least this in return. But if you're drinking 2 to 3 cups of water, that's dehydrating. If you're eating a lot of salty foods, that's dehydrating. So you need to really compensate on that, right? Because if you think about it, 70% of our body is water. So we need to actually make sure that we hydrate all the time. But water itself, okay, yes, it's rehydrating, but water has so many functions. So for MS, what's really, really important and what people don't really make that link is that water helps to transport nutrients to our cells. And by doing so if you eat something, right, you're digesting in your stomach, water will help bring the little nutrients to your cells, and in your cells, you make energy, right? So you feel more energized. So that's why a lot of people, when they start drinking a lot more water, they start, I feel a lot better, right? So that's something to really notice, that water is really important for that, right? It's also important to cleanse. Water is very cleansing to the liver, really cleansing to your kidneys, really cleansing to your whole body. It helps to regulate your body temperature. It helps to transport toxins out of your body. So it's really important. And water is also one of the simplest ways to actually avoid urinary tract infections, because it places less stress on your kidneys. So a lot of people don't want to go to the washroom too often because, let's say you're a teacher. I remember being a teacher, and a lot of teachers would say, well, I'm not drinking, pretty much until lunch or something like that. Well, you can't do that, but because you can't step out of the classroom. It's difficult to step out of the classroom and go to the washroom. But once you start drinking on a regular basis, you'll see that you won't necessarily have to go to the washroom that much, right? Because consider your body like a sponge, right? So if you start drinking water, so this is the water that I drink, I have this with me all the time, or when I step out of the house, I always carry a bottle of water with me. So the water, if let's say you're dehydrated, well, that, yeah, of course, the water's going to go right through you and you go to the washroom all the time. That's why people get discouraged and they start drinking less water. But once you start drinking more water, then your sponge becomes more filling. It'll get full, so it won't go through your kind of old sponge type of thing. Okay, so that's really, 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 really important. That's one of the key things that I mentioned and review with my clients all the time, is to improve the amount of water they drink. Now, I'm not saying to go out and start drinking all this right now. So let's say you drink 2 to 3 cups a day. Well, how about you increase to 4 or 5 cups a day? So just gradually make a little changes itself. And something else that I had mentioned is that water is also very good for your bowels. It keeps you more regular, which is really important, right? Because we want to make sure that we go to the washroom, have regular bowel movements on a daily basis, and water helps to do that, right? Going to the washroom is releasing our toxins. So that's super important. But a lot of people say, well, in terms of water, I don't like the taste of it. Well, today, we can put a whole bunch of different herbs. We don't have to don't go buy the little Meoc, little envelopes type of thing, or the little drops to put in the water because it gives a sweet taste, whatever. Those aren't good for you. No. You don't want that. It's artificial sweeteners. You want to maybe sweeten your water with natural sugars. And by doing so, you could select any types of fruits that you like, add a little bit of lemon, add some lime. My favorite is cucumber and lime, and a little bit of mint. I think, oh my God, that's really, really yummy. So that's really good. But on a daily basis, what I do is I'll put ginger, because it's anti-inflammatory, and I also put lemon. So that's really good. So that's just one way that you could savor your water and maybe encourage you to drink a little bit more. I think that that's really good. I actually had a client that I just actually sent me an email a couple weeks ago. And she said that she downloaded my guide, a free guide that I'm offering on my Facebook page. And she said that, oh my God, Linda, something I have to share, that I had stopped drinking water. I always drank water, but I had stopped drinking water these past couple months. But now, thank you for the reminder. Now I've started drinking water again, and I feel so much better, right? So I hear that all the time. So hopefully I've encouraged you to drink more water. It's super important. If you're thirsty right now, who's thirsty? That's a sign of dehydration, okay? So just remember, drink more water. Cheers to you. I'm going to have a little sip. Okay. So my 5th tip, turmeric. I'm sure you've all heard turmeric. This is kind of the superfood of the past year or two that you kind of hear it everywhere, because there's so much research being done on turmeric, and we're finding out the beneficial effects of turmeric, and so many people are living with inflammatory conditions that it is such a powerful anti-inflammatory food. And it owes its anti-inflammatory properties to curcumin. Now, I have one here with me. I wanted to show. So you can either get turmeric, either as a root, right? Look at it. It looks just like ginger. I have had a lot of clients that I would show this to. They had never seen one, like a fresh one, because it looks very much like a ginger, right? It's 2 roots. So this is your ginger, and inside your ginger, is yellow, right? But then if you open the turmeric, it's orange. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, it smells really nice too. It has a really distinct smell. But if you're not used to turmeric, don't go sticking all this in your blender, in your smoothie or whatever. This is a lot, okay? So you would start a little bit at a time, maybe half of this even, because it's strong. My daughter actually made a big juice last weekend, and she's like, oh, Mama, I took your ginger and your turmeric, but she put so much of it. It was like she found it really, really strong. So you have to be very careful. So curcumin. So why would we want to consume turmeric? Well, the main thing is that it helps to reduce inflammation and pain. Now, why is that? Because curcumin, I said that it's the orange kind of color, right? Curcumin blocks the release of enzymes that will actually promote inflammation in the body. So that's the role of the curcumin, okay? So it blocks the enzymes that will actually promote inflammation. So that's why it reduces. And studies are now showing that they found that curcumin, or turmeric, I should say, is just as effective, if not more effective, than taking over-the-counter medications such as Motrin or Advil or whatnot. So you can either eat it fresh, you can have it as a powder, or you could even have it as a supplement, okay? So basically turmeric and MS, they should be best friends. It's really good. Okay. My favorite is drinking this tea. Now I have the recipe of this tea on my Facebook page, Eat Well with MS. I've heard everyone I share this recipe with is unbelievable. I'll share one story. I have a client that came to me. She has MS. She'd been living with MS now for, I would say maybe 12, 15 years. And she was struggling with a lot of pain. She'd had the MS hug a lot of inflammation. And she went to her doctor, and her doctor actually recommended that she find a nutritionist to try to revamp her diet, and he wanted her to eat more an anti-inflammatory diet. So she discovered me online, and she came to see me. And after the third or fourth visit, she was drinking this tea all the time. We changed her breakfasts. She's drinking more water, like made a lot of nice little changes in her diet, eating more greens. She went back to her doctor, and her doctor couldn't believe that her results. Her inflammation had decreased that much. And he was like, "Oh, who's this nutritionist?" So I thought that was kind of cute. But I was happy for her to share that with me, because it's nice when you get testimonials from clients to say that, yeah, foods are actually helping. I'm not saying that it's going to help everyone, but you can try it, especially if you're dealing with a lot of pain and inflammation. And it's very good. Okay. And my last point, tip, is to incorporate more foods that are high in magnesium. Why magnesium? Well, magnesium is basically an anti-stress mineral, and it helps your muscles relax. So if you're struggling with a lot of leg cramps, a lot of insomnia, muscle pain, anxiety, whatnot, magnesium really helps to calm us down. And many of us are deficient, not only in omega-3, but are also deficient in magnesium. And that would be very helpful. So where do you get magnesium? Well, magnesium, there are different sources. Are greens, you get them in the kale, let's say, so all your leafy greens. But what I really love are pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds, yes, we get them in October, but you can buy pepitas at the store as well. So those are very high in the magnesium. Raw chocolate is very dark chocolate. Raw cacao nibs that I wrote down here are very, very high in magnesium as well. So I often like to, in my morning smoothies, to top it off, I'll always put like little cacao nibs on top just to kind of increase the magnesium content for that day. You can have a bath, Epsom salts, very high magnesium, and you could also supplement as well. And this is just kind of a chart of all the different foods that are rich in magnesium as well that you could incorporate in your diet. A lot of leafy greens, a lot of some grains as well. Okay. So those are my 6 tips. I know it goes by very quickly. I hope that you can at least walk away with one kind of idea of something, one little change that you can make to your diet. That's what I encourage you to do. So how can I help you? Well, one, I have a free guide, like I mentioned. That's the guide. The picture that you see here, my top 6 secrets, is basically kind of a summary of what I shared today with you. You'll be receiving, for those who participated in the webinar today, will be receiving a thank you little message email, and I'll have the link of the guide so that if you want to go and see it. If you don't get that email, then it's on my Facebook page as well, Facebook page where you could find me, Eat Well with MS. I post a lot of nutritional tips. I post a lot of, sometimes I'll see some articles. I really love to share that because I think it's important for us to stay educated on what's going on in the nutrition world related to MS, and it helps us because more and more research is being done and to show that how nutrition is very powerful in helping us better manage our MS. And to help us feel better, right? And to reduce our MS symptoms. And I think that that's really key. in doing that. So I love to share those things with you. If you need additional coaching, if you think that, you know what, I really need a one-to-one help or whatever, I do provide nutritional counseling. So just send me an email. That's my email that's listed up top here. I'd be glad to meet with you, and we can discuss to see what your needs are, and I can help you achieve your goals. And I'm also offering a 6 weeks Eating Well with MS program. It starts officially, this is a new online program. It starts officially May 7th. Again, it's divided on in 6 weeks. And every week is a different theme. And if you purchase the program, basically it's you get free access to a membership site, which is access to my classroom, right? So I developed a membership site with all my content and all over 30 different types of videos where like now, you know, I'll be teaching you all the way through, and you're part of a community. And there's also a private Facebook group community that's affiliated with this program. So if you want more information about this program, again, on my Facebook page, Eat Well with MS, you can find information on that if that interests you. Okay, so I'll leave it at that with this last thought of the most powerful tool you have to change your brain and your health is your fork. And I truly believe that. And that's what's been keeping me and my MS symptoms, I would say, in remission for these past few years, is really, really making a point of eating well as exercising, and keeping a positive mindset. That's really important as well. So now I'll open up to questions. So Jen, if you want to step in for a sec.
See here. Okay, so thank you so much, Linda, for all of that information. We really appreciate it. So we have about 15, 20 minutes for questions.
Okay.
So if you haven't already, please be sure to submit them through the comment box there. I see you've got some comments already, so thank you for that. As I mentioned previously, please make sure your questions will benefit everybody listening today. As Linda's unable to answer personal health questions, she mentioned those would be better off directed to your healthcare practitioner, someone on your healthcare team. So let's see if we have any questions as of yet. Feel free to start submitting those, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to read? I see one here. I'm thirsty, and I can read them out. So I'm thirsty.
I see. Sorry, Linda. I see one in our question box here.
Okay.
Someone asked if there's any evidence to follow a high or low fat diet.
Yes, actually there is. I don't have it here per se. There are benefits to it. Like, is the person talking about a ketogenic diet? Is that what they're referring to?
That wasn't indicated. I'm not sure if whoever wrote that wants to respond, but they just asked if there was evidence to follow.
Yeah, because it depends on, if you follow the SWANK diet is a low-fat diet. And that is something that I strongly believe in, eating good fats and good saturated fats as well, such as coconut oil. But it depends on what your beliefs. And there are, I think, evidence to show more and more the beneficial effects of eating a higher fat diet. But when I say higher fat, I don't mean your trans fats. And I think that's where people get confused in terms of high fat, low fat, thinking that high fat is a diet filled with trans fats, filled with hydrogenated vegetable oils, filled with fried foods, things like that. Those are really bad fats, right? So those are high fats. So I don't want a diet like that. So you want to concentrate more on the good fats, such as your good oils, your refined olive oils, and your avocado oils, and avocados, and nuts, and seeds. Those are high fat, but they're good, right? So I eat a lot of fat on a daily basis. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, they had follow up to just say the keto versus SWANK diet. So I think you addressed that. Okay, perfect. We had another question. Someone asked if they should avoid eating rice because they really like to eat rice, and they're looking for some alternatives or substitutes that you might suggest.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it depends on which type of rice. I'm not one to say that you completely eliminate all grains. Some diets do. I don't particularly eat very much of them because I don't feel very well on them. So that's a food that you need to kind of avoid, kind of in a moderation type of thing, and see how you feel. But in terms of grains, if you're going to eat some, then maybe a basmati rice, but not eat very much, right? But if as a substitute for that, I often make a cauliflower rice. I think that's really nutritious and very good. So I have a recipe posted on cauliflower rice salad, or I make it just kind of as a side with my fish or with my chicken and whatnot, and that's really good. But I have recipes. I have recipes on my Eat Well with MS page.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked about what you'd recommend for best snack foods.
What I'd recommend for what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
For snack foods.
Oh, for snack foods. Oh my God, where do I start? There's so many. So snack foods, what I love to snack on, let's say banana and cashew butter and chia seeds, right? Oops, you can't see it. No, that's right. Okay, so I have little chia seeds. You can't really see it here. So basically, I would cut up my banana, or if not a banana, let's say a pear or an apple. I'd slice them up, and then with almond butter or with cashew butter, and then I'd sprinkle a little bit of chia seeds. I think that's a really good snack. Snack would be vegetables and hummus. I think that's a great snack. Snack would be avocado. Avocado is a rich source of good fat. We were talking about fats earlier. Well, fats in avocado is rich in omega-3, rich in good monosaturated fat. So that would be good with some, let's say, some gluten-free corn chips or whatnot, or some vegetables. You could make, there's a variety of things. Like I love to make little energy balls. I love to make little energy balls made with almond butter and made with some coconut oil. So that's really nutritious and very good. In terms of snacks, I make a little cheese seed I could go on and on and on. There's so many snacks available. So I hope those give you a little ideas. But if you go again on my Facebook page, I have a lot of recipes for muffins, for different granola, all MS-friendly recipes.
Perfect. Thanks, Linda. Someone asked about your thoughts in terms of avoiding red meat, and if that was a good idea or not.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think you need to avoid it completely. I think what's important is the quality of the meat is important in terms of whether or not, like I prefer to go, if you're going to go red meat, go organic. So you decrease your toxic load. That's one thing. Two, you don't need to eat red meat every day. I think you would consume like your fish, like maybe once a week or whatnot. I like to eat wild meat, so that's red meat. So I eat deer and moose all the time because I'm really fortunate because I have a father and a brother who are hunters, so I get a lot of that type of meat. So I will consume that maybe once a week or once every second week or whatnot. But I think what's important when you think of red meat is that you want something that's not as high fat saturated, like you want to kind of more of a leaner kind of cut. Is that it?
Perfect.
Okay.
We had a question, can I eat too much fruit?
Yes, definitely, because it's sugar, right? So sugar is sugar is sugar. So our body, if you eat a pineapple and you eat, let's say, a chocolate bar, both are sugar, but your body doesn't know the difference. The difference is that the pineapple, yes, it'll give you sugar, it'll raise the glycemic index in your body, but will also give you a whole bunch of other compounds, a whole bunch of nutrients, okay? So this is very good for you. Whereas, let's say, a chocolate bar or a cookie, okay, yes, it raises your glycemic index, but it's nutrient void. There's nothing good in this. It's actually more detrimental for your health, okay? So eating too many fruit, well, you don't want to raise your glycemic index too high, because with MS, if our sugar level and our glycemic index is too high, then that increases inflammation. And we know, as I talked at the beginning of the presentation, any inflammatory foods, any inflammation in the body can provoke an MS attack. And that's what we really, really, really want to avoid as much as possible. Okay. So that's why too many fruits, yes, fruits are really good for us. They're nutritious. But if you just eat 6, 7, 8 fruits a day and you're eating just that alone, it's too much sugar. Your sugar load's too high. So to eat your fruit, you want to eat it in combination in a balanced meal, right? So the sugar needs to be balanced, so with something that'll decrease the sugar load, right? So you'd eat it with a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat. So example, an apple. Well, you eat your apple. Well, apple's a lower sugar, but let's say something high sugar. So a banana. Well, eat your banana with let's say almond butter. So those two together, they balance out so your glycemic index isn't as high. Okay? So 2 to 3.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Someone asked for your thoughts on the Wahls diet, which I know you briefly touched on earlier, in terms of not eating eggs. So could you just expand on that a bit more, please?
What did you say? Sorry, I missed that one.
Someone asked for your thoughts on the Wahls diet, which you had touched on earlier. So are you able to kind of explain that a bit more and touch on that again?
Yeah, well, the Wahls diet is a protocol. I love Dr. Wahls. I really admire her work, admire everything that she does. I believe in a lot of everything that she says. And I do personally follow a lot of her guidelines. Again, like I said, though, all diets, they're there for guidelines. They're there to map out, give you ideas as to what works for you, and you just need to kind of try it out, right? But in terms of the Wahls diet, it includes eating no eggs. Yeah, she doesn't include eggs personally, Dr. Wahls, because she herself, she had a IgG testing done. So that's basically a food sensitivity test that we could do to see if we react to a certain food. And she's very reactive to eggs. And eggs themselves are considered a very high top allergen food, right? So she recommends, I think, in her protocol that you can start off with eating, I think in phase 1 you can, but later on to take them out because it is a higher allergen food. So again, it depends on you. It depends if you're able to tolerate it, if you're sensitive to it or not. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Because eggs is a wholesome food, right?
Okay, someone had asked about, they said that you mentioned eating chia and flax seeds, and we're wondering if they should grind them into a mix or eat as a whole seed. They've heard some different things and are wondering what your thoughts are.
That's a great question. That's a really great question. So, I mean, the two are different, right? So if you want to, so the flax seeds, you do need to grind them to actually reap the benefits of the omega-3. You can eat them just like that because they will go in and out the chute, okay? So you won't really absorb the omega-3 from the flax. Unless, let's say, make it, put it in your smoothie, then it'll grind up and you'll be fine, okay? And also something to remember is that these types of seeds, it's a fat, right? They can become rancid very easily. So I would encourage you, if you're to buy flaxseed, be careful where you buy them. If you buy them in bulk, often it's out in little bulk and there's air all the time, so it's being oxidized. So it can become rancid. So they'll smell. If it doesn't smell really good, it's like any nuts. If they start having that little smelly, the nuts or whatever, the seeds are rancid. So you don't want that. That's inflammatory. They're not good anymore. So I would actually store this in the freezer. It keeps them fresh a lot longer. So flax seeds, you need to grind them. Chia seeds, you don't. You can buy them grinded. You can grind them if you want, but you don't necessarily. You will be able to absorb the omega-3 from these. I prefer actually the chia seeds to maybe soak them. There actually helps in terms of digestion. Okay?
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Linda. Okay, and someone asked, what are your thoughts about sweet potatoes and how they could be beneficial or not?
Oh, goodness. My favorite food. Yes, sweet potatoes. I know we think, oh, potatoes, they're yucky. Yes, white potatoes, they're very high glycemic, but sweet potato, they're low glycemic. So they're very, very nutritious for us. They're part of the orange family, right? So very high in beta-carotene, very high in vitamin A. So I would encourage eat your sweet potatoes. They're very good for you.
Perfect. Thank you. Someone asked if you ever eat pizza and what you could recommend for kind of a healthy option for pizza.
Yeah. Good question. Do I eat pizza? Yes, but I make my own pizza. That's the difference, right? I rarely go out to restaurants, but I know now you hear a lot of in restaurants that they offer, let's say, gluten-free pizza, or they offer a healthier version of pizzas, and there are some that exist. But I mean, for myself at home, I will buy a brown rice wrap that you find in the grocery stores, normally in the freezer part. So I use that as my base. And then I'll make pesto with basil, like make my fresh pesto. So I use that, put a little bit of spinach, and then I will always put a whole bunch of veggies, depending on what we have, avocado, either olives or either avocado or black olives. And then I'll always, let's say, have some chicken that we cook, and I'll have pieces of chicken, and I don't put cheese on top. I will, that's pretty much it. I buy a cashew cheese that I kind of maybe put a little bit of pieces with that. But with the pesto, it's really good. So that's pretty much my version of pizza. I've tried also, there's now really nutritious, you make a cauliflower base. So kind of, that's really good too. So, yeah. So you can.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you can still eat pizza.
Great. Thanks, Linda. So it looks like that is most of the questions that we have today. So if there are any other questions, please submit them now.
Okay.
We're trying to keep all of our questions for today kind of relevant to Linda's discussion. But for any questions about outside topics, you can certainly email myself, or you can call our MS Knowledge Network as well at 1-844-859-6789. So if you had a question that maybe wasn't about nutrition, those can be directed to our Knowledge Network as well, or to myself. So if there are any other ones that you have, please ask them now.
It says my question was, what was the question?
I see one, is peanut butter recommended or not?
Oh, okay. Personally, I don't. Peanuts are more inflammatory than all your other nuts. They're not as nutritious that way. I see it more toxic, more moldy. People are more reactive that way. So it depends. Again, that's more my kind of understanding of that in terms of peanuts. But if you are to eat peanut butter, I would recommend that you eat organic peanut butter if possible, not your Kraft peanut butter or your Skippy peanut butter, because they contain a lot of trans fats. So just be careful with, and a lot of added sugar and added fillers. So that just, it's normal that if you buy, let's say, an organic natural peanut butter, then you leave it in the counter, and let's say in your cupboard, and in a month, and then it gets all hard, or the oil kind of separates. Well, that's normal. Okay, because it's a normal food. You just need to mix it up, put the oil back in, and it's fine. I know a lot of people are kind of, they don't like that, but it's natural, right? Because you want to kind of stay away of the fillers and the added sugars, and it's more the trans fats too that I really want to stay away from, especially with us with MS. Those are foods you don't want. Okay?
Perfect, thank you. Someone asked what your thoughts are with coffee and caffeine, and if that's something that you should avoid.
Well, I mean, coffee, think about it. It's a caffeine. So it's an exciter type thing, right? So if you're someone who's anxious all the time, someone who is stressed, it can actually increase that, right? So, but I mean, if you drink one coffee a day, I'm fine with that. It's not the end of the world. Just make sure that you hydrate, right? You drink more water. I don't like plastic, sorry. I prefer glass, but yeah, so drink more water. But yeah, one coffee a day, I'm not one to say no. But if you can, I prefer herbal teas. Herbal teas are really good. We can get herbal ginger tea or a lemon. There's a whole whack of different herbal teas that you can drink. But then it's what you put in your coffee too. You have to be careful with the sugars that you may put in, or with the dairy that you may put in, right? So that's something to be careful in terms of your coffee.
Perfect, thank you. Someone asked about kind of the difference between real or raw honey, and if there's a healthy amount of that you should be consuming.
Real or raw? I think it depends
honey.
on. Yeah, they're normally, I never heard of real raw, like in terms of written that on the label. I see raw. So raw, you see that a lot because it hasn't been dampened. They haven't done anything to it. And so in terms of how much, well, it's still, yes, it's a good sugar. It's a good alternative sugar than your refined white sugar, but it's still sugar, right? So it's still inflammatory. So a teaspoon a day, I think that would be good. Like if you put that in your coffee, I think that would be good. Or if you put it on in your gluten-free bread or whatever, wherever you put it. Yeah. So that's about the quantity.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Someone was asking if you eat grains. They know that you mentioned hummus. So if you could elaborate a bit more on that and maybe benefits of hummus.
Mm-hmm. Do I eat grains? I don't eat very many grains. I just don't do well with them. The only grain that I will I will eat will sometimes be quinoa, because I'll make quinoa salads because I run a lot. It's because I train a lot, so I want a little bit more carbs that way. So quinoa is I'm okay with it. In terms of other grains, I don't eat very many other grains. Maybe some basmati rice sometimes, or sorry, not basmati. What am I saying? Brown rice. Maybe I'll eat a little bit, but not very much. I've kind of limited that a bit. What else was the question? The grains and
hummus.
Hummus. Hummus I love. I do. It doesn't love me. So, I mean, again, it's legumes. And if you're able to consume legumes, again, legumes is something that is on the border. Either you as a person with an autoimmune disease, you're able to eat legumes, or either you don't eat legumes. I mean, legumes are wonderful. I think it's a wonderful snack. So I will sometimes have a bit, but it's just that sometimes I don't digestive wise, I personally don't necessarily agree with it. So, I mean, in terms that, again, you have to try it out to see. It is a wholesome food. It's good. I prefer to make it. I make my own hummus if we're to make, like for my girls here at home. And just be careful to read the ingredients to make sure that what's on. Sometimes it's what they actually add to the hummus that's not good, like the oils that they would add. Okay, so you just need to be careful.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. So that is all of our time for today. We want to make sure that we're ending promptly. So thank you everyone for your questions and your comments. I know there are some that we didn't get to, so we will be sure to respond to those afterwards.
Okay.
So again, feel free to email either Linda or myself to follow up if you have any additional questions that you think of. And Linda's provided her contact information as well. And so thank you, Linda, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you, everybody, for listening in.
It was great. And please come see me on my Facebook page. And if you have questions, I'd love to answer them.
And we will be sending everyone, oh, sorry, Linda.
No, go ahead.
We'll be sending everybody a survey in the next few days and would appreciate if you could give us some feedback. And we'll also send out the link for the recorded session so that you can view it at a later time, or if you know someone who didn't get a chance to tune in, we'll make that available to everyone as well. Perfect. So thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.